Hello and welcome to episode 25 of the Ego Chall Podcast. My name is Preston Byers, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Justin Binkowski. And today we're going to be previewing the 2021 Call of Duty League Championship, a 4-day event. This is by far the biggest event of the year. 8 of the best Call of Duty League teams are playing in this event. How are you doing, Bink?
I'm all right. Ready to talk about some COD as always.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Before we get into the actual tournament, um, this past week while I was on vacation and you were slaving away on the Dottie Sports desk, the CDL announced that Champs, it will continue to be on land. It's being held in Los Angeles this year with fans, but there will be stricter COVID protocols. Since you wrote the article, can you just give us like a brief summary or recap of what's going on with the protocols and everything?
Yeah, I'll do that in a sec. I think it's important. First, I ask you, how was your vacation?
I was good. I went to DC for one night, went to North Carolina for one night, and then stayed in Myrtle Beach for 3 nights. And then West Virginia for a night, driving back home because I didn't want to drive 12 hours in a day. But it was fun. It was good not to have to work, which was the most important thing. That probably made your job a little bit harder, but um, yeah, it was good. I got a little bit sunburnt, but other than that, pretty good.
We managed without you. It was all right. We got through it. Um, but back on topic. As you said, the big question. Obviously, we did our last show 2 weeks ago because we took off last week when Preston was on vacation. 2 weeks ago, we were recapping the Stage 5 major, which had just happened on LAN. And following that event, there was some speculation and rumors as to the exact nature or format for champs in regard to whether it would happen on LAN, um, and or if there would be fans if it was on LAN still due to COVID or COVID-related cases from the um, previous Stage 5 major. So the CDL announced on August 11th, which was Wednesday last week, I think, um, that the event would continue as planned on LAN at the Galen Center in LA. Fans will still be allowed to attend the event, but the CDL is enforcing stricter COVID protocols. The exact quote from the CDL is that effective immediately, all attendees will be required to show proof of vaccination or, if not fully vaccinated, a negative PCR or antigen test received within 72 hours of the day of your attendance. All attendees must wear a mask during the event, regardless of vaccination status. So that's just the update. COD Champ still will be on LAN, still will have fans allowed in attendance. These fans will just have to follow these updated protocols to try to make the event safer for everybody there.
Yeah, if you're going to Champs this weekend, please be responsible, not only for your health, but the health of the other attendees and the players and the staff that are running the event because, I mean, this is what the second event this year, so the second event in like 18, 19 months with fans, um, yeah, for Call of Duty at least. So just please be responsible. I know there were a few COVID cases or reported COVID cases coming out of the Stage 5 major, so you just need to be a little bit extra careful and hope everybody has a good time. Um, Anything else before we jump right into the bracket?
I think that's it from a actual, like, you know, pre-event coverage that we have to talk about. We'll obviously get into some of the individual teams situations that we know about in regards to COVID and another roster change that might not be surprising or may be surprising depending on what side of the fence you sit on. But yeah, I think we can get right into it.
Yeah, so let's jump into the bracket. We're starting in on Thursday, August 19th, so 2 days from now, or I guess one day if you're listening on Wednesday. We got a few matches on Thursday. The first is the Dallas Empire versus the Minnesota Rocker. Um, this is a game this is a match that we've just saw at the Stage 5 Major. Is a interesting matchup throughout the entire season. Minnesota has seemingly had Dallas's number for quite a few matches, even though they were usually never favored to win any of them. Minnesota obviously also just won the Stage 5 Major, had the greatest comeback in Call of Duty history. So they have a lot of momentum on their side. Dallas performed well in the Stage 5 Major, and they performed well over the past month or so with Vivid in the lineup. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to bring up the bracket on our stream right now. If you're watching on Twitch, you'll see it, twitch.tv/Ego Chall Podcast. And if you're listening to the podcast and you want to see the bracket, go to youtube.com. We put all of our VODs there. So we're going to run through our bracket. We're going to do an Ego Chall Podcast bracket for this. So Bink is going to fill out his own bracket. And he already did. I will do so, and we're doing one together because two brains are better than one, although it's debatable with the two of our brains. So let's jump in. We got Dallas versus Minnesota. In your opinion, who's going to win this match?
So right off the bat, this was a super tough one for me to pick individually. I was talking to Jim just briefly in our Twitter DM earlier that I said I set it on 2-2, and then I was like, man, I'm not really sure which way it can go. Or I feel like it can go either way. Like you alluded to, this has been a matchup we've seen multiple times this year, and we've seen both teams come out on top of it multiple times. Most recently, though, we did see Minnesota come out on top of a 3-1 win in the winners bracket round 2 matchup at the Stage 5 Major. Dallas won Garrison Hardpoint to kick off the series, and then Minnesota took Miami Surge, Raid Control, and Checkmate Hardpoint to win the next 3 and take the 3-1 series win. I just feel like Dallas is also a smart and very well prepared team. With Rambo and stuff, I feel like they'll do their research coming into this match. Maybe change up the vetoes for the series, and try to get an edge there from watching Minnesota's VODs, and that's why I feel like this might be close. I feel like this is going to go Game 5. I'm just really torn on who exactly I think is going to come out on top. In my bracket, I gave it to Minnesota, but like I said, it was really it was one I had to think about for a while, and I went back and forth on it. I can honestly see it going either way. So whatever you think. For the Ego Chall podcast bracket version, you can go with that. I just think it's going to be 3-2 either way.
Yeah, I don't really. I think out of the first day matches, I think this is probably the most difficult to pick for, because in my opinion, or I guess just my general feeling is that Minnesota, their great run at the Stage 5 Major, it may have been more of a, I don't want to say a fluke, because that doesn't give them the credit that they deserve, but that it can't be sustained over such a long period. And I don't know, I kind of want to say Dallas, but at the same time, I just saw Minnesota have the performance of their lives over the past, and I mean it was on LAN as well, so that has to be taken into consideration. So I'll agree with you that Minnesota wins this 3-2. I think it's a really hard matchup either way, and I could see,
Yep.
If you pick Dallas, I could see that. If you pick Minnesota, I could see that as well. Let's go with Minnesota 3-2 in this match, and they'll move on to the winners semifinals, and Dallas will drop into the losers bracket round 1. Let's get the second winners round 1 match. Optic Chicago versus the New York Subliners. This is a match that we've seen many times this season. Had some really exciting matches. It's been a kind of a weird situation for both teams, obviously, because Clayster, he stepped away before the final week of Stage 5 group play. and Diamond Khan replaced him. Diamond Khan filled in for that final week of group play and then the major. And I think a lot of people were concerned that Clayster would not be returning in time for champs, but he did actually confirm that he has been practicing with the team. He's been with the subliner starting lineup, and he will be in the starting lineup for champs this season. So that's a great sign. Hopefully, mentally he is kind of I don't know, recharged if that's the way you want to look at it. But Clayster will be replacing Diamond Khan in the starting lineup. And what do you before we get to the prediction, what do you think of Clayster returning, and what impact do you think he'll have on this team?
I mean, his impact is always, the hype man leadership role of a true veteran. I'm gonna go for the three-peat for him, back-to-back-to-back champs wins if New York's able to pull this one off. Um, but it's tough. Just New York's really had that a rough stretch recently with started all the way back at the beginning of the season. We've talked about it multiple times, but just recently, with everything starting with ASIM not being able to go to that stage 4 major, and then having the Clay take the break, stage 5 group, the end of group play, I think, and then the major. Now he's coming back in. It's such a fluctuating situation there for New York, and I don't I mean, not to spoil our prediction or anything, but I'm just not sure what to expect out of New York coming into this matchup. They will be playing the green wall, and Clay always gets pumped for matchups against them and stuff. So that could play a role. Him playing off the crowd and stuff should be exciting to see. But New York's just in a tough spot. It would obviously be pretty cool if they're able to go on some unexpected run here. Just like bounce back from all the adversity they faced, not only recently but throughout the whole season. But I'm just not too sure what to expect out of this team at this point.
One of the things you said is Clay's trying to go for the three-peat. That's one of the storylines going into this is if New York and Clayster did win, he would become the first and only 4-time world champion in Call of Duty, which would be just incredible. The same goes for Crim6 on the Empire. If he does it and the Empire go back to back, they're really the only CDL champions in history. He would also become a 4-time champion. We don't have Karma in this event, so he can't really do anything about that. But this New York and Optic matchup, it's interesting, I guess. I agree with you. You don't really know what to expect out of New York because the last time we saw Clayster in this lineup, they were not good. It wasn't like they were on fire and then he stepped away. They were actually at their lowest point in the entire season. They went 0-3 in Stage 5 group play with him, and then he decided to step away, and they actually looked better. I don't really know if it was more they didn't really play as tough of competition with Diamond Khan in the lineup, or if they just really needed something different at the time. But they did look a little bit better with Diamond Khan in the starting lineup. I think, that being said, I think Optic are... I don't think you should pick against them in this scenario just because really New York is a wild card, but I just... I guess the extenuating circumstances around Optic are also... they can also play a factor in this. We should mention that Scump and Envoy, they've had some COVID scares in terms of positive tests. They actually tested positive, both of them. They were still testing positive on August 14th, but then Scump revealed on his Twitch stream that they had both since tested negative. So he announced that yesterday, so Monday afternoon. So that's a really good sign. Hopefully they keep getting those negative tests because that's been a problem, throughout, like we've seen in sports where guys get these false positives and as well they get false negatives. So hopefully they just stay negative and they are truly negative. So I guess, what do you think of this series as a whole? Do you think the Scump and Envoy stuff will play a factor at all into the result of this match?
Uh, you know, kind of like you said, we're not seeing Karma in this one. There was a possibility he might have had to, hop on the sticks in this situation. I know they were
Cinder
talking
baby.
about it, like you said, um with the positive test for Scump and Envoy. I think officially, um, because Sender's the coach and General is the sub. I don't know if Sender's actually signed as a coach. They might have had to use them, but I'm pretty sure Karma is actually signed as like an analyst, but I don't know if he has like an official CDL contract or something.
Yeah.
Just wanted to bring that up. That would have been crazy if, in a world where Scump and Envoy weren't able to play, if Karma had to hop back on the sticks and try to get that fourth ring after not even competing. Well, he played a couple Challengers Cups, I think, at the beginning of the year. Regardless, don't have to worry about that now. Most likely, since Scump, according to Scump, they're testing negative. But for this matchup, I picked Optic to win 3-1. I feel like, you know, regardless of the COVID situation, apparently they've been practicing this whole time. So I feel like those boys are going to be ready to go as far as we know. And once again, they're going to be playing again back on land in front of fans. So the green wall could play a factor here in this series, hype them up, even if they were like underprepared or something heading into this matchup. Like the emotions could take over. Dashy gets like just a 3-piece or something, crowd goes crazy, they pick up steam from there. So I think Optic comes out on top of this one. Like I already said, I just feel like a lot of question marks surrounding New York, the state of New York right now. Who knows? We saw it earlier. I'm thinking right now about that stage 1 major where Optic beat New York early in that event, and then New York came back in the losers bracket. They threw like those weird vetoes. It was early in the season, but like it was some maps that they hadn't played against Optic or something, and New York stunned Optic to knock them out of that stage 1 major. We could see something here where like Revan and JP, the guys on New York, behind the scenes, like try to pull something off in the vetoes, or maybe throw, I don't know, some surprise at Optic. But at the end, I still think Optic Chicago takes this one.
Yeah, I think that's an underrated part of these first round matchups for the winners bracket because Optic in New York, they had 2 weeks to prepare for this match in particular.
Yeah.
Because I mean, obviously you're still gonna prepare for the phases and the Torontos, and you have, I'm sure, some scouting material on every single team in case that you play them, but Optic in New York and same with Dallas and Minnesota, they've known that they would have to play each other in the first round for 2 weeks now. So there's really no excuse
Yep.
for not being prepared in terms of scouting. So that could play a factor. I think Optic will be more prepared than they were back in stage 1. I don't think that they'll be surprised by anything. And I just think that they're more stable right now because of the roster changes that New York has been through, and I'm not really sure. Maybe that time away, Clayster being away, maybe that helped his performance, and maybe the trio of Mac, Hydra, and Asim not being with Clayster, maybe it'll kind of click back into place. Who knows? But I wouldn't risk it if you're doing a pick 'em. I would say go with Optic, and I think 3-1 is a good series score. I think. I mean, what do you think? Do you think New York wins the search in this? Because I mean, that is like classic Optic to win the hard point in the control and lose the search.
That's where my head was at with this one. I just thought, classic Optic series would be them losing the search and winning the respawns.
Yeah.
Um,
That puts Optic into winners round 2. That puts New York down into losers round 1. Do you want to continue on in the winners bracket, or do you want to go down to the losers bracket?
I think we can go down the losers bracket. I just want to say real quick too. I'm pretty sure it was Looney who tweeted it. Yeah, I looked it up. When Clay was announced, Looney tweeted, "I feel for Diamondcom, missed out on both champs because of the situation." I just wanted to highlight that because I feel like that's something that hasn't really been talked about, like because of, you know, him having to come back into the lineup and then Clayster replacing him. Diamondcom wasn't able to play in Challengers champs and now being replaced by Clay here. He's not going to play in, the pro champ. So tough situation that I just wanted to mention briefly here. I feel like we're going to hear more in the off season about what happened, like kind of behind the scenes with this New York team. But for now, that's all we really know. We'll have to wait to see if we find out more.
Yep. It'll be interesting to hear both sides from Diamond Khan and Clayster because I believe he tweeted that he wasn't ready to talk about it yet and that he would probably, he'd probably do like a YouTube video or something after the season to discuss what happened throughout this season. So let's go down the losers
Who
bracket.
tweeted?
I think Clay tweeted that he
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
ready to like explain. Maybe I'm imagining that or something. I thought
No, I
read
just don't remember.
yeah. But either way, it should be interesting to hear everybody's opinions on what actually happened with New York this season because they've had a really rough go. Probably maybe them in London the roughest season in terms of what ifs. But let's go down to these losers bracket games. We got the first one would be LA Thieves versus Dallas. So on the schedule that would be the first match of the losers bracket. Dallas in our bracket it drops down after a 3-2 loss to Minnesota, and since LAT finished in the bottom two, or I guess yeah, so they finished 7-8. They started in the losers bracket as well as Florida. Dallas versus LAT. LAT lost to Dallas at the Stage 5 Major in the losers bracket, so they've been in this kind of situation before. I'm sure that LAT are preparing for Dallas and Minnesota. They have to kind of be prepared for either one of them. Who do you think comes out on top of here?
Yeah, I mean, kind of just like you said, we just saw this matchup uh, at the last major where Dallas beat the Thieves 3-1. It was on the Saturday of the major, and the Thieves had played the first match of the day. On that Saturday, they eliminated the Subliners in that matchup and then went into the match against Dallas. And the Thieves took the opening hardpoint on checkmate against Dallas, and then Dallas won. Miami Search 6-5, Garrison Control 3-2, and Moscow Hardpoint 250 to 234. So it was a really close series. I think Shotzi had like a 1v2 or 1v3 in that round 11 of the Search 2 to clutch it up for Dallas. So it was a really hard fought series. I said that I gave it to Dallas 3-2 here. Um, just because, like we were saying, we just saw this matchup in Dallas. Was able to come out on top, but it was really close. So I expect, similar to what we said about these other matchups, the Thieves have now had multiple weeks to prepare to play either Dallas or Minnesota in this matchup, and they played. Did they even play Minnesota? No, they played Toronto, I think, before Dallas. Um, so they've played Dallas, so they have that VOD to look over on top of other VOD for Dallas, and then obviously they have all of the VOD to watch from Rocker playing throughout the winners bracket and then the 9-map grand finals. So there's a lot of stuff out there for the Thieves to prepare for either team in their first round matchup here. I just think that both Dallas or Rocker, are better teams than the Thieves at this point. Maybe the Thieves are able to make something happen, go on like a miracle run in the lower bracket as we've seen a couple times earlier this year, but I went Dallas 3-2 here.
Yeah, I think Dallas are the better team out of them and LAT. And Dallas will have the, I guess, advantage of playing a match earlier in the day, so they'll get, uh, you know, coming off of a loss, probably a little bit different than coming off of a win earlier in the day, but they'll still have, gotten some kind of match in earlier, and I think we talked about it uh, at the Stage 5 major, how some of these teams have to kind of warm up and prepare at at LAN. It's a little bit different than online because you could get a scrim against essentially anybody online before your match, but on LAN it might be a little bit different. We don't really know. Maybe Florida will want to scrim them just in case, so they can get some kind of warm up before their match. But I think Dallas has the advantage of at least having some match on LAN right before this, and I just think that they're better than LAT. So I'll go with Dallas, probably 3-1, but we can say 3-2 just to be safe in terms of any control win that LAT pull off. So that moves Dallas into losers bracket round 2. And then the other losers bracket round 1 match is New York versus Florida. In our bracket, New York would drop down after losing to Optic, and Florida starts in the losers bracket. I believe New York eliminated. So New York has eliminated Florida from the past 2 majors, and I would say at least in the last the Stage 5 major, New York really had no business beating Florida in terms of the roster changes that they were going through, because Clayster stepped down a week or 2 before then, and Florida, I mean, they've had one roster change this entire season, and at times they've looked really, really good, like they could be a top 4 team. Lately that hasn't been the case though. What do you think happens here between Florida and New York?
I mean, you mentioned Stage 5, but even at Stage 4, when New York eliminated Florida there, they were playing with Decimate. So the past 2 majors, New York has eliminated Florida with different rosters. And now if we see New York lose to Optic and drop down into this matchup, it'd be potentially New York eliminating Florida from 3 straight tournaments with 3 different rosters. That's just, something pretty wild to think about. So obviously, yeah, that's just going based off that logic. New York's seen success against Florida recently. So I picked I picked New York to win this one 3-1. Let me pull up the Stage 4 results though, before I say what I'm thinking, because Florida, it was 3-2, but was it a revert? Okay, it wasn't. So they did both of the matchups that New York won at Stage 4 and Stage 5 were 3-2 wins. Just the win at the Stage 5 major was a reverse sweep for New York. Came down to Game 5, Round 11. So they've been close, even though Florida has lost both of them. I just went with New York for, that case, like we said, with recent history, them seeing success. But I guess, I could see in a world where, New York is struggling with another change and Clay coming back in the lineup, maybe they don't gel right away. And if, Humongous Wake and Neptune and the skies are firing on all cylinders, I could see Florida pulling this one out. But on my bracket, I went with New York.
I agree with you. I think New York wins this. We're obviously predicting New York to lose their winners bracket match, but I think that I think it's been a few times this season in the majors that New York has lost in their winners bracket match, and then they've looked a lot better in the losers. Maybe they have to kind of get punched in the mouth to wake up and make the adjustments. And like you said, New York has kind of had Florida's number even without their full roster. And who knows, if New York are able to kind of just make it close with Optic and maybe go down to a 5th game, that momentum or that confidence of, oh, maybe we are as good as we used to be, maybe that'll seep into this match and New York will beat Florida. But I think New York is the better team. It kind of is just which of these teams are actually going to show up, because New York has we saw in Stage 5 group play, they didn't really show up in the first 3 matches, and Florida has a really, really awful tendency of being inconsistent. So who knows really, but yeah, I agree with you. Florida wins 3-1, which will move them into losers round 2. So we'll have to go up to the winners bracket, which would that would conclude Thursday's matches. So that Florida New York game, or if it's a Florida Optic game, that would close out Thursday. And Friday we would open up with the Toronto Ultra, and in our bracket we said that Minnesota would defeat Dallas and move on to winners round 2. So Toronto versus Minnesota, a rematch of the Stage 5 major grand finals. I'm sure that Toronto is. I don't know if they hope they get Dallas, but I think they would have fonder memories of playing Dallas than Minnesota. Obviously, Minnesota just came back and they won a best-of-9 series after being down 0-4 in the grand finals. What do you think? Do you think that Minnesota can continue to beat Toronto if they do meet here?
I'm really excited to talk about these 2 matches in particular, just because it's been a while since we've seen these teams play, and we don't know for sure who Toronto and FaZe are definitely going to play. Obviously, we know it'll be one of the 2 teams from the first round, but since this is just based on our prediction, we don't know for sure. But if this matchup happens with Toronto and Minnesota, I'm really excited for it because it is that grand finals rematch. And the biggest question going into it for me would be, how can Toronto respond? Toronto, even though they're on, the opposite side of the greatest comeback in competitive Call of Duty history, they still proved in that grand finals that they can beat this Toronto team. Obviously, they went up 4-0, so they won 4 maps before losing the next 5. So they are able to beat Minnesota in maps. Like, it's not like I think Minnesota is going to come out and absolutely just dominate this series, but I feel like the mental game is going to play a huge role in this series. If Toronto ends up facing Minnesota, like, how does Toronto respond? That would be the biggest question for me. Similar to the Dallas-Minnesota matchup again, this was one where I had it sitting on 2-2 in the score, and I think it's going down Game 5, and I'm not sure who takes it. I think it could go either way, but I ended up in my bracket going with Toronto. I think I could, for the Ego Chall bracket, I'm cool with us going with either team, whatever you think. You can try to convince me otherwise, I guess, or we can see what we're thinking. But I think this will be a good matchup again if it ends up happening. I don't think if Minnesota gets here, like, Toronto will just be shaking and, like, Minnesota 3-0s them. I feel like Toronto is going to be that team who's, like, thinking about their mistakes. They have a good coaching staff there again. I feel like this is, like, beating a dead horse in this episode, but I feel like, Toronto's obviously going to be that team to put in the work behind the scenes, do their research, try and, review the VODs, figure out what went wrong for them. And they're going to, if they play Minnesota, they're going to want to come back with a vengeance and get their revenge. So that's where my head was at with this one. I ended up going with Toronto 3-2, but, again, based on recent performances, I could see it going either way.
This is a really weird matchup because I'm just looking at the results from Minnesota-Toronto matches. So in Stage 5 group play, so this was July 11th, Toronto won 3-1. And then obviously they played twice at the Stage 5 major. Toronto lost 0-3 in the winners finals, and in the grand finals we know that Minnesota won 5-4. So it's pretty even in terms of map count in recent memory, and most recently there's like an 8-4 map count in favor of Minnesota. This is really tough. I don't know. I think that I like I said earlier, I don't think that Minnesota winning was a fluke, but just so many things happened, so many improbable things happened that they were even there because they hadn't shown that they were even a top 4 team before this event. So I think that was pretty surprising that they were just able to kind of beat some of these top teams. And then obviously the grand finals is incredibly improbable. I don't really know what the odds were. If you would have like the ESPN odds,
Yeah,
the win
I know exactly what
probability.
you're talking about.
I don't know what it would have been after going down 0-4, but it's got to be like 99.9%. Um, I just, I don't, I agree with you. I think Toronto wins this because I'm having a hard time with Minnesota beating Dallas because I do think that Dallas in general is the better team. Just recently, Minnesota has done so well that it's hard to pick against them. But with Toronto, even with those two recent losses, I think that Toronto is probably the second best team in the league, and it's just so hard. I agree with you though. I think Toronto wins 3-2, and if they win
Yep.
this and they beat Minnesota, I think that's a huge monkey off their back because if they lose, then it's like they go to the losers bracket and they're like, "What is going on? Why can't we beat this one team? Like we can beat pretty much anybody else, but this one team has our number." Because that would make their last three losses to Minnesota, which would be just like incredible. For Minnesota at least. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Toronto wins this 3-2, but I mean, people are probably going to like Minnesota fans would probably be a little upset. They're like, what else do we need to do to get, in your good graces kind of to make you believe that they're the best team? But I think if Minnesota beat Toronto here, and especially if they beat them kind of decisively, then I would look at it and be like, holy crap, maybe Minnesota is literally the best team in the world. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it would definitely be one where if we see this matchup again and like Minnesota just stomps it. I remember like you said, like their matchup in the winners final was a 3-0 like smoke slaughter. Like it wasn't even close. It was done in like 25 minutes. If that was to happen again, then we would really have to be sitting here and saying, damn, Minnesota might be the best team in the game. But we just haven't seen, like, even with them making that great comeback, they took down multiple good teams, but that was still like 4 series, right? They played the 3 in the winners bracket and then the grand final, so they won 4 series to win that stage 5 major, and that's all we really like. Before leading up to that stage 5 major, nobody was really expecting Minnesota to take that, so like that was the first time we saw them in this like championship winning form. So now the question for them going into champs is, can they really replicate it? Are they the real deal? It's not like you said, we're not saying that was a fluke or not taking any credit away from Minnesota, but just for me personally, I need to see more.
yeah, it's a sample size thing. We don't
Yep.
really like you only have to win 11 maps for a major, and the reason that we've given so much credit to FaZe in the past is that they win those 11 maps usually very comfortably. They didn't go to a ninth map before, and they had completely slaughtered everybody before that. So it was a combination of things. We really hadn't seen anything from Minnesota in terms of, is this team like before the major at least, like is this team incredible? Because I mean, you mentioned it on the last pod, but they did dominate Florida like in their last group play match before the major, but
It did, yeah.
we don't really know how to rank Florida in terms of these teams because like we've said all season long, they don't really show up all the time, so it's very hard to gauge where they are. So yeah, I think this is a very close matchup. I think any
Yep.
match with Minnesota it's going to be really odd and very interesting to see because can they continue this and can they keep up where they left off at the stage 5 major? So that would be interesting. But we're going to go with Toronto 3-2, which would push Toronto into the winners finals, which would make another winners finals for them. And then we have another winners round 2 matchup. We have FaZe versus Optic, which would be incredible with fans to see the two most popular teams facing off for a chance at winners finals. The last time we saw FaZe, they were not looking too hot. They actually were eliminated by the Seattle Surge from the Stage 5 Major. They didn't win a match at the Stage 5 Major, which was pretty incredible in terms of, I mean, just it was just shocking because they had made the grand finals of each of the first four majors, and then for the Stage 5 Major, they just really didn't look like themselves. Uh, here we have Atlanta versus Optic. Who do you have moving on to the winners finals?
So this was another one that I was just saying I'm really excited if we get to see this matchup. Just because, like you said, the last time we saw Atlanta was at that major, and we saw them get their worst placing of the season. So there's questions surrounding Atlanta heading into this matchup. How do they respond and try to bounce back to be that undisputed number one team in the league that so many people expect them to be? For me personally, I feel like FaZe is the type of team that would take their struggles at the Stage 4 Major as like a gut punch, or like a slap in the face, wake up call, however you want to put it. And they've already shown throughout this season, most notably, like we've talked about, when they were going through their struggle there, in Search and Destroy between Stage 2 and 3. I think they responded by signing Tupac, one of the most successful online Search and Destroy attorney players, and signing him as an analyst to help improve their game in Search. So they've been a team throughout this year, even with as good as they have been. They put in the work to try to get even better. So I feel like with this time and preparation off, they're the team that I expect at least them to have gone into the lab, worked tirelessly to try to figure out what went wrong at that Stage 5 Major in order to bounce back at champs here. So I'm excited to see what FaZe we get. And obviously it's tough because you have to balance here. I think we have to balance between picking the FaZe that we've seen win 3 titles and be absolutely dominant, and that FaZe that just struggled most recently when we saw them. So if they're somewhere in between at this point in my head without actually seeing them play yet. So I picked Atlanta to win this match 3-2. I could see Optic taking a couple maps here, maybe it being closer than some people might expect on paper, just due to what we've seen between these teams throughout the year. But Optic did beat FaZe in Stage 5 group play, I believe, and I think it was 3-2.
Yeah, it was.
So yeah, this is another one that it could go either way. But I'm expecting FaZe to bounce back and take it. Love to hear what you have to think about this one.
Yeah, it's tough because, like you said, it is kind of a balancing act between what FaZe we kind of expect to show up. Because if it's Stage 5 Major FaZe, I have no doubt that Optic will move on to the winners finals. But if it's any other type of FaZe that we've seen this season, throughout the entire season, and the FaZe that has, for the most part, been able to get the better of Optic this season, I would say FaZe. Because other than that 3-2 loss in Stage 5 group play, which was July 18th, so literally a month ago from today, FaZe was undefeated against Optic going into that match against them. So I don't really. Maybe that's concerning because that means that FaZe has lost 3 times in the last month, which is basically half their losses this entire season. I don't know. I think that FaZe is the better team. I still think that FaZe is the best team in the world, and if they show up, there's really nobody that can touch them, and that's been the case for 6 months now. I think that we have to continue to believe in them, even with the recent struggles. And I think that them being in the winners round 2 and having the ability to see Optic versus New York in winners round 1 can give them a better idea of the team that they're going to face. And yeah, I think FaZe wins this. I think 3-2 is a good series score. But I could really see this being a like a 3-0 situation where FaZe is so motivated to kind of prove people wrong and say that, oh yeah, we still are the best team, and Optic, even with their fans cheering, like we're still gonna embarrass them. So I could see really anything, but I think FaZe wins this regardless.
Yeah, and I just want to mention too, we saw in a little bit of a different fashion just because of the format of the CDL, but last year, kind of like FaZe, Florida, and Dallas were like those three teams that were winning those home series. Uh, Florida started winning more, obviously, when it went online. FaZe was winning early in the year. Dallas like mixed in, depending on what teams were at what events, since all 12 teams didn't attend all the home series in MW. Um, but before champs, FaZe didn't win the last event. It was Toronto won that Toronto home series, and then FaZe was able. They did have like a multiple. I think it was they got 2 round bye last year because of the CDL points for the champs. Um, and they ended up making it to the grand finals, but they did lose to Dallas twice. They still got second place at champs last year, and obviously that's what Simp, Celium, and Abusey were on that team last year with Priesta and Major Maniac, who are on Minnesota now. But I just felt like mentioning it that we did see last year FaZe not win the event before champs, and then they were able to respond by at least, they didn't play a ton of maps, or a ton of series, but they did get to the grand finals after losing the previous event.
Yeah, I think that FaZe is well equipped even if they lose this match, or if they lose, say they win and then they lose in the winners finals. I think they're well equipped to make a losers bracket run and kind of charge toward the grand finals. They're, like we said, they're the best team in the world until proven otherwise. And a bad performance at the major doesn't really prove me otherwise, because everybody gets like a pass for a bad event, because we saw Optic, they've had poor events, they've had some kind of rough group play. We've seen it with New York, they've had those slip ups. So I think that everybody's able to have one bad event, but if you're a FaZe fan, you just kind of hope that this isn't a trend, and at the very end of the season that they've been completely demolishing, they slip up and they have consecutive bad performances. So hopefully for FaZe fans that doesn't happen, but it'd be interesting to see who wins Atlanta versus Optic. Let's get into the. I would assume, because we don't really know how the schedule will go. We know that there will be 4 matches on Friday. We know that there will be 3 matches on Saturday, and then the grand finals on Sunday. It just hasn't been announced to the public which of the matches will be taking place what day, like if they'll do a winners finals on Friday. But I'm almost positive it's going to be a loser, both of the losers round 2 matches to close out Friday, and then we'll get the winners bracket final on Saturday, as well as the losers semi and loser finals. So let's start at or I guess it actually shows it up on the bracket. It shows it. So the first match in the losers bracket would be Optic versus Empire, and then it would be Minnesota versus Subliners. So that's actually helpful. So let's start with this Optic versus Empire match. We'd have another edition of eClassico, one of the greatest rivalries in Call of Duty esports. Both of these teams kind of expect to win champs. Optic has not been nearly as at the top as Empire has. And obviously Empire is the defending world champions, although it's a different roster than last year. So Optic would be coming right off of a loss. They would maybe switch sides on the stage, but they would stay on the stage to play Empire. Who do you think wins this if Optic drops down to the losers bracket to play Empire?
We just another instance here where it's a match we just saw at the stage 5 major. We saw it in the losers bracket semis on that event. Optic won 3-1. And just based on that, I ended up going Optic 3-2 here, which would be interesting if it comes down to a game 5 and Dallas loses the search to Optic. Our Ego Chall correspondent Trem would probably be very upset. But similar trend to a lot of these matches in this tournament. We've seen the matchup recently, and I'm just going with that mindset that Optic found a way to win their last matchup, and I think they would do it again here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the um, Optic coming straight off of their match against FaZe, I think that would help them, despite Dallas playing. Actually, Dallas wouldn't have played earlier. I was thinking that. Yeah, I was thinking Minnesota and Toronto, but yeah, so Dallas is coming in cold. Optic would literally be staying on stage to play their match. I think that has a lot to do with it. And I think that Optic, like you said, winning a match against winning a match against Empire at the Stage 5 Major is nothing to kind of overlook. So yeah, I'll go with Optic. I think 3-2 is a good series score here.
I'm thinking I put 3-2 on my bracket. I feel like if Optic wins, it would be 3-1.
Yeah.
If Dallas were to take it, it would be the 3-2. Just like we kind of mentioned earlier, that typical Optic respawn dominance. But yeah, we'll see what if this matchup happens. It'd be another exciting one, obviously.
And then the losers bracket round 2, we would have Minnesota versus New York. So we're predicting that Toronto would beat Minnesota in winners round 2. Minnesota would drop into the losers bracket to play New York, who would be coming off of a win over Florida in losers round 1. I mean, I'm going to go with Minnesota because it doesn't really make... I mean, New York is just so unpredictable because of what's going on around their team. And Minnesota, even though they would have lost to Toronto, I wouldn't think that they would just completely fall apart here in the losers bracket. So I would go with Minnesota like 3-1.
I went Minnesota 3-0 because I was looking at my bracket at this point and I said I hadn't picked any matches to be a 3-0, and I feel like there's never been a COD event with no 3-0s.
It's just
and
easier.
If one was to happen, I feel like it would I feel like it would happen here, so that's what I went with. That was my mindset for this one.
Yeah. I mean, it's undoubtedly, I think one of these first like 6 matches will end up in a 3-0, but when you're predicting it, it's really hard to say, yeah, this team won't even sniff a map victory. I think it's just easier, at least in my brain, to think, oh yeah, they'll win a map or they'll win 2 maps. Kind of like in football, you don't think that a team will get beat like 24-3, but a team will get beat 24-3, and you'll be like, oh, like when you're predicting, you'll be like 31-24, but it's just not going to happen that way. So yeah, I think 3-0 is fine. I think Minnesota is a much better team in their current form than New York is in their current form, but we don't really know what New York's current form is, so that's kind of frustrating from a prediction standpoint. But yeah, I'll go with Minnesota as well, which would make it a very interesting losers bracket round 3. So they don't have the order of these matches, like what time they're gonna play them, but or no, what am I even looking at? Like, I think I'm high or something. Never mind. So we'll go to the winners bracket final first. So on Saturday, August 21st, we would start off the day with Atlanta FaZe versus Toronto Ultra, or whatever 2 teams are in the winners bracket final. But for the sake of our bracket, it's Atlanta versus Toronto, which we've seen multiple times this season. And both of these teams actually came out on top. We saw the stage 2 major, Toronto beat FaZe in the major grand finals, and then I believe FaZe won in the stage 3 winners finals maybe, but they played it quite a bit. Who do you think wins out of FaZe versus Ultra?
I went FaZe 3-2 here. Think, like you said, we've seen this matchup now multiple times. If we get this one, it would be another great showdown. But at this point, if we think FaZe gets past that first hurdle and Optic, I feel like from there, I just expect FaZe to just like keep going and be that team again. Like if they're able to succeed early, that Optic showdown for me is like I just said, that the first obstacle for them. If they're able to get past that, I see them pushing through, continuing on to potentially take this uh, champs title home. But yeah, regardless of the end result, I just feel like this winners final would be a really great match again. It would be one where we've seen both of these teams be good at search and control in particular throughout the season, in parts at different times. Toronto was really good at search when they won that stage 2 major, and that was kind of like the catalyst to propel uh, FaZe to sign Tupac and try to improve their S&D, and now they've been good in S&D. FaZe have been really good in control all season, and I feel like Toronto is like the second best control team behind FaZe. So it would be a really close series in my mind, but I'm sticking with FaZe here.
Yeah, I'm sticking with FaZe as well. Like we said, or like I said, I think they're the best team in the world, and even a big win for Toronto over Minnesota doesn't really sway the way I'm thinking. I think that FaZe coming in off that Optic win and kind of getting a little bit of the not momentum, but more just the confidence of we're still that damn good. I think if that happens, then FaZe can probably just keep on rolling, and that would make it another Champs Grand Finals for FaZe. Back to back would be their fourth out of, or their fifth like bracket style Grand Finals this season, which is obviously incredible. So yeah, FaZe in our bracket moves on to the Grand Finals, and then we have Minnesota versus Optic in the losers bracket semifinal. So Minnesota in our bracket, they lost to Toronto in the winner. So they beat Dallas, then they lost to Toronto in the winners bracket, and then they dropped down and beat New York. And now they're here against Optic, who beat New York, lost to FaZe, and beat Dallas to get to this point. Who do you think comes out on top between the Rocker and Optic?
So when I was doing my bracket at this point, I kind of went a little troll, and I went more towards a storyline centric mindset, and I ended up picking Optic to win this matchup, the next one, and get to the grand finals, because I think that would be nuts. The stadium would be popping. Viewership would probably be increasing exceedingly better than what we've seen throughout the year. But this is one I could see it go either way. We saw, what was it, stage 3 major when Accuracy got the 1v3 ace on Moscow Search. I can't remember if it was stage 3 or
Stage
not.
two or
I
stage
don't
three?
remember.
I don't remember though.
Yeah. Regardless, we've seen these teams play before, and just like that one, like Optic, if they just weren't lined up, they probably take down Minnesota there, and who knows what happens in that tournament from that point. So we've seen these teams play. Minnesota is obviously the hotter team coming into this event, but who knows what where both teams would be at if they're at this point in the tournament. So I'm not really sure. What are you thinking here?
I think Optic has been consistent in being a top three, top four team the entire year, other than that one event where I think they got top six or something. But for most of the year, they've been able to hang around, top three, top four, even top five. And I don't know, Minnesota is just. It kind of depends on how this heading into this match, if they struggled with New York but still beat them, I would be more confident in Optic winning. If they just go out and slaughter New York, then I'm like, oh crap, maybe Optic are really in trouble. But I just feel like Optic will be able to pull it out. Like you said, that accuracy clutch that's a fluke. Like that's not gonna happen. 8 out of 10 times. Like that's not, uh, that's not consistently happening, and I think Optic's learned from that. I think Optic has looked better since then, so I don't think that they have anything to worry about there. They were um, one of the best teams at the Stage 5 major. They looked really good. And in Stage 5 group play, they were, I think they finished first in their group, so, and they beat FaZe, so that's nothing to scoff at. I think that Optic are really, really good, and I think I'll say 3-1 because if it goes 3-2, I think Minnesota wins.
All right, I'm cool with that.
All right, so let's go with Optic 3-1, which would move them into the losers finals where they would face Toronto. Toronto to this point in our bracket would have beaten Minnesota in the winners round 2 matchup and then lost to FaZe in the winners finals. Both of those we think will go to game 5. And then they will play Optic, who's kind of making a losers bracket run here if they could win this match. Yeah,
That's what I was telling you. I was going with the storyline.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, if they get to this and they get to a losers finals, which would secure them top 3, man, the Galen Center would probably be pretty wild because I mean, Optic is the world's most popular team, and they've only won 1 champs, and I think it would be a really cool story for real Optic to, at least get to the grand finals of champs. I'm not sure if they can beat Toronto though. Even with Toronto coming in off of a loss and Optic presumably having played, back-to-back games.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I kind of want to say Optic, but I also I think my heart is telling me Optic and my brain is telling me Toronto, but I mean I don't listen to my brain most of the time anyway, so I don't know. What do you think? Do you think I think it'll
Well, that's what
I think it goes to 3-2. Like I both want it to and I think it'll happen. I think a game 5 is in the works here. Yeah, I don't know.
So that's what like I said, for my bracket at this point, after I had Optic taking down Minnesota, I was like, okay, we're just going full send on the storyline aspect here. And then I picked Optic to win this one 3-2. But if we look realistically, no storyline aspect, just recent matchups, we saw these teams play twice at the Stage 5 major, and Optic lost both times to Toronto. So I feel like that has to play a role in it. I think, not, putting aside like the fans and, how cool it would be to see Optic in the finals. I would probably, if I was redoing my bracket, I'd probably go Toronto 3-2. But, for the Ego Chall Podcast edition of the bracket, I'm cool with us going either way. The other thing to note, though, just because you were mentioning the times here on the bracket, is that according to this, the first matchup would be that winners final on Saturday, and then the second matchup would be Elim round 3, and then immediately after that would be the elimination final. So in this scenario, Optic is coming off that matchup against Minnesota, going straight into their matchup with Toronto, whereas Toronto would have lost to Atlanta, had some time off, and then has to play again. So that could play a factor too, where like Optic, if they beat Minnesota, they come out firing in all cylinders against Toronto, similar to what Toronto did in the Stage 5 Grand Finals, where they had just come off their losers final match, and they were able to take those early maps against Minnesota. So I don't know. Like you said, I think 3-2 either way. I will let you make the executive decision for the Ego Chall bracket, and I'll be cool with either response.
Yeah, so I was just looking up the results between Optic and Toronto this season, and I'm just kind of throwing away that Stage 1 win for Optic because that was with Methods in the lineup and not Insight. So discounting that, then Toronto is 4-0 against Optic this season. So including those aforementioned Stage 5 major wins. They also had wins at the Stage 2 major and had a win at the Stage 3 major. So I think our brains are really
Yep.
should be saying Toronto, because that's three separate bracket style events that Toronto has defeated Optic in. The first one was in winners round one, then losers round five, and then at the stage five major, Toronto won. They beat Optic in winners round two, and then the losers finals. So this would be the exact same scenario. They get to the losers finals, and that was a 3-1 win for Toronto. Um, so Brain says Toronto, Heart says Optic. I literally was standing so hard for the Gorillas for like 3.5 months of this season. So I see no reason not to just say that Optic will defy odds and logic and beat Toronto in the losers finals. I think I mean, it's not as unrealistic as LAG getting top three, like I said, at I think the stage two major or the stage three major,
Yeah.
but it's still pretty unlikely. But I think we should do it. I think that for the Ego Chall
All right.
podcast sake, I think Optic should get into the grand finals of champs, which would be what this is only their second time in the grand finals, because they didn't get there in 2013, obviously didn't get there in 2014 or 2015. I think the only time
What are you
that
talking
they
about?
for Optic to get the champs grand finals.
Oh,
Obviously they did it
yeah,
against
they were
MV
never
and IW.
yeah, they were never actually in the grand finals. Their thing was getting third
Yeah.
uh before they had like that string where they lost to
Aches.
Aches and
Yeah.
BO3. Um
At least they can't get top 24 at this event. Um,
that would be impressive.
yeah. They just bring a bunch of challengers teams and then they lose to them and they get top 24. I mean, why can't we do that? Yeah,
That'd be storyline.
I think Optic wins, or I don't know if I think Optic wins this, but I'll say Optic wins this, and moves on to the grand finals, which would make, maybe we'll get to like 150, 200,000 people in the stream if FaZe and Optic play each other in the grand finals, and you would have kind of that night on Saturday to hype it up, and presumably, so this would start at 3 p.m. Eastern time, the grand finals on Sunday. So you would have that night on Saturday and earlier in the morning and afternoon on Sunday to kind of hype it up. Like, here are the two biggest COD teams. They're playing for the World Championship, millions of dollars on the line. Come tune in. Hopefully, you get to a 9 map series and people are really hyped about it. Um, at least that's my hope. At least just for the drama, and the better that COD does, the more Dot Esports may pay us, which would be really nice. So who do you think? Who do you think, FaZe versus Optic in a best of 9 series? Nobody has the advantage of playing earlier in the day, so they're both coming in cold. So who you got, FaZe versus Optic?
Just real quick before I get into that, I'm looking it up. Just because we were talking about it for Optic at Champs beforehand. They won COD XP 2011. Not really
Doesn't
sure
count.
what we're counting that as.
Nope.
Okay, so they came in third at COD Champs 2013. Then I'm pretty sure they came in third at COD Champs 2014. Yeah, third at COD Champs 2014. They didn't come in third at COD Champs in AW because I know FaZe Red did.
HBR.
Where is it? Is that so? They came in seventh at COD Champs 2015, and that's when it started the string. And then I think they came top 8 in 2016.
That sounds right. Yeah.
This
That was 2016 was
yeah, 7th, 8th,
Cloud9.
2016. That's Black Ops 3. Yep.
And then 2017
and
they
then
won.
obviously 2017 they win. And then 2018 World War II.
That's all Octane and Methods' fault, by the way. Nobody else deserves blame for that.
But yeah, if we get this matchup, like I said for my personal bracket before, rationally thinking about Toronto's success against Optic this season, um, I have FaZe winning this one 5-4 just because maximum storyline potential there. I think that would be absolutely nuts if we get a 9-map grand finals for COD champs. Um, but regardless of map count, if we actually see this matchup here in the grand finals, I expect FaZe to take it. Maybe there's some optic magic there in the crowd and with the crowd, the green wall backing them. And I think that would play a role in helping Optic win a couple maps in this series. But at the end of the day, if we have FaZe getting this far and previously beating Optic in this event, it would only make sense to have FaZe taking it all and getting those rings.
Yeah. So FaZe last year they lost 5-1 to Dallas in the grand finals,
Yeah.
and they just, I mean, you could tell from the series score they got absolutely smoked. Uh, I don't see that happening again. Even if they play Toronto or they play Minnesota or Dallas or Optic, I don't think that that 2021 FaZe is going to get smoked by any team in the grand finals, in a best of 9 especially. So I'll say, I mean, I think for the culture, for the viewership, we should say that this will be a 9-map series no matter what. And I agree with you that FaZe will win this. I honestly think, memes aside, if Toronto beats Optic like my brain thinks they will, I still think that
Yeah.
FaZe will win in a grand final against Toronto. I think
Yes.
that FaZe would beat any of these seven or any of the 7 teams at the event. So yeah, I'll say FaZe wins this. We'll say 5-4 just because that's what should happen. In terms of like viewership, would be incredible to go to, I don't know, raid, search and destroy, and whatever, like $1.5 million on the line between the 2 most popular teams. That'd be cool.
And just real quick note too on the quote unquote brain pick there. If Toronto were to get to the grand finals and FaZe were to beat them there, it would be another second place finish for Bance at a champs because obviously Bance was on
2016.
that Splice team that lost to Envy and Black Ops 3 champs. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, it would definitely cement his status as the greatest European COD player of all time because he
Oh
has.
yeah.
I mean, I think that's already there,
I think yeah.
but it would just like make it that much greater because he, obviously that Splice team was all Europeans in 2016, but
Hmm.
I mean, he's the only, he was part of that Splice team that won in, what was it, IW
IW.
Pro League playoffs, and
Yep.
they were like the first European team to win a major event that had like more than like Apex, like in Modern Warfare 3, like they were the first European team to actually win an event with a bunch of NA teams at it. So yeah, I would kind of cement his status as the greatest European player of all time, and it would just
I
kind of create
and
this
like you
legend of like Insight and Cammy and Kleenex. Like that would be incredible for them.
Yeah, well, like you said, I think that might not even be like
Yeah,
a conversation anymore. Like especially with his bounce back, uh, just this year, where like it was stage 2, he was named player of the stage, I believe.
yeah, when they won the
And he
major.
like said, yeah, and like they said in like the interview that like he was considering retiring or stepping down because he was getting like all these negative tweets and stuff. And then for him to respond and come back and not only win that major but continue to have a really good year this year, I feel like he might already have solidified himself regardless of champs as the greatest European Call of Duty player ever. But that's a conversation for another day too.
Yeah, and if they do end up winning champs, Toronto, being, I mean, that would be, they would be the first Europeans to win champs, which would
Yep.
obviously be a great thing for the region, despite them not representing a European team. But I mean, that would, I mean, I don't really know. Like, because Insight and Cammy and Kleenex, they're so young, and I don't want to say that they're like unknown, but to a more casual COD esports viewer, they weren't around in like IW. Like, so I think a lot of people are like at the very top level, I guess, in IW. So I think a lot of people would kind of be surprised by their names being cemented into history. But uh, either way, if FaZe or Toronto, as long as Empire do not win champs, then we will have the second different team to win champs, which would be, I think, very cool for the history of COD, because you don't really like to start off things with dynasties right out of the gate. You don't want to be like the Green Bay Packers winning a bunch of Super Bowls at the start to kind of pad your stats or anything. But yeah, I'm very excited for this event. That's 4 days of a lot of Call of Duty and a lot of stakes. I think it'll feel a lot different than the majors, because once you got to
Oh
like the
yeah.
third major, it was like, okay, like I'm kind of used to this. Like the stakes are all the same, and we've seen a lot of these teams play before, but this is to end their season. So and we have fans, and it's on land, so
Yeah.
there's just a lot riding. And for the teams that ultimately do not stay together, which is like probably 11 of the 12 teams in the CDL, if we're to believe from last season, then these players are basically having auditions for whatever team decides to sign them in the off season.
Yep. It's definitely gonna be an exciting one. I think I can't wait for it to start. Love champs every year, but this year, obviously, there's a little bit of a different feeling. Like it's not like the OG champs where we have, I think it even started on Wednesdays where we have the group play leading into the 16 team bracket and all that. That'll always be like my favorite format for champs, and maybe we get back to that if there's a lot of expansion and multiple years down the road. Um, but regardless of format, I just can't wait to see these matches. All the guys are going to be going hard and going to be a lot of entertaining ones.
And before we change topics a little bit, let's talk about the MVP. Just kind of remind people of the 5 candidates for the 2021 CDL MVP. That's Simp from the Atlanta FaZe, Shotzi from the Dallas Empire, Celium and Abizi as well from the Atlanta FaZe, and then Cammy from the Toronto Ultra. Those are the 5 candidates for the Most Valuable Player award. We've said on past podcasts that it's either Simp or Abizi. Like, there's no other people that really should be considered in the same category as them. Before this event, I think they announce it sometime during the playoffs or whatever.
Yeah.
So, kind of your last word. Who do you think will win the 2021 MVP?
I'm gonna go down the same road that we've gone down every other time we talked about it. I'm going with BZ. You're probably gonna go with Simp. So make it better. One of us will likely be right at least. It's just for me. I think Simp is probably the best player in this game, but Abizi is just like for his role, like the dominance he shows in that entry, slaying sub role. He's just like so unmatched. I think maybe it was one of Octane's YouTube videos. He was kind of talking and saying something along the same lines that it's just Abizi is in a class of his own in that regard, and I feel like it's just a thing that for Abizi, like since Simp has joined the team, like a lot of the talk has revolved around Simp. Like before Simp actually joined United, Abizi was that up and coming young sub player who joined United at the start of the year. And United got second, and I think it was Vegas and Black Ops 4, the first event. Was it? I don't remember. Vegas
No, it
was,
wasn't Vegas. It
yeah, because
was
Optic won.
Yeah. I just know it wasn't Vegas because I think that was the event that United did really poorly with JCap, and there was like the rumors that they were trying to drop each other before the event. But it might have been
No,
Atlanta.
I'm looking it up now.
Atlanta. Like, it would have been whatever that March
Nope, it
event was.
was. It was
Vegas?
CWL Vegas 2019. Yep,
What was the first event of the year then?
that was Vegas.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I was thinking something different.
Yeah, you're thinking later on in the season is where. So we have Vegas, and then it goes to Fort Worth and London. So Fort Worth would have been that event where
Yeah.
uh, United struggled, and then obviously Sim comes in for United at
Yeah.
London. Um, but regardless, that's kind of just for me. Um, that mindset or like the narrative there is like, uh, since Simp has joined the team, he's been like that guy, and it's kind of just taken. I don't want to say like taking the spotlight, but like obviously Simp joins United, and he immediately goes into the conversation of like best rookie of the year, and like wins those MVPs at Miami and champs. And it kind of just like I don't want to again like for a lack of a better word like leaves a Beezy in the dust. It just he had it was really his like coming out party or breakout uh for his pro career. So I don't know. I feel like it would be nice to see Abizi take the MVP here, but I think at this point it would be I'm gonna be I would be surprised if it was anybody else, but I think if it's Simper or Abizi, I'll be happy for both of them. I'll be happy for whoever, but um
Wow, you're not gonna be
yeah.
happy for Shotzi to win back-to-back MVPs?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it would be really cool for any of these guys. I mean, for if Cammy wins MVP, that'd be incredible, like storyline perspective. Um, but
Sensitive trading.
I'm for the pod. I'm
I mean,
I'm
that's a.
saying I think Abizi's gonna win, but I would be happy if any of them win. That's what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I think that would be a great story that Cammy went through sensitivity training and ended up being the MVP. I think all these guys would have to go and go through their own sensitivity training. But yeah, I like you said, I think Simple win, but like we've been saying for months now, or like a month or two or whatever. Um, as long as Abizi or Simp wins MVP, I feel like that's the most deserving. I think they're the most deserving. Uh, and I mean, it's kind of hard when you're on like the best Call of Duty team, maybe of all time, that one of your. I mean, we'll get into it in the off season, especially if they win the event. No, nobody heard this if they don't win the event. Don't come for me, but especially if they win champs, then it would look really weird if at least one of the players wasn't the MVP of the season. So yeah. So that does it for the MVP talk, and let's just briefly talk about Call of Duty Vanguard, the next Call of Duty title. Uh, so this is being developed by Sledgehammer, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, isn't it? Yeah, Sledgehammer. And we're
Well,
going.
let me look real quick. There was a tweet that Jim sent me actually. I can't remember if it was from Charlie Intel. Um, but it listed, or no, it's from Tom Henderson, who's he is a writer at Dual Shockers. He has been like attached to some of these leaks for Vanguard previously, and it confirmed that Treyarch will also be working on Vanguard, and the list was Activision, obviously, Treyarch, High Moon, Beanox, I hope I said that right, Raven again for Warzone, obviously, and then Sledgehammer.
Okay, so yeah, so
So,
there's
lot of devs.
a lot of devs. Hopefully, that means a league play. I had my most popular tweet in terms of likes because of that. But yeah, this is going back to World War II. So Sledgehammer, they developed Call of Duty World War II, which released in 2017, and I mean that was probably the Call of Duty with the best league play ranking system because they had the MMR, and at least at the beginning of the season or like near the beginning, there were a bunch of pros queuing up for league play all the time, which was pretty awesome to see, at least from like
Yep.
a fan's perspective. So it should be really interesting. They did a little teaser to reveal Vanguard, but we'll learn more about it. So Battle of Verdansk, the official teaser will be dropping at what is that? 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on August 19th, which would be Thursday. I was really hoping that they would do
Oh,
it during champs, like right at the
well, that's
beginning
what I
of
was just gonna.
champs.
It'll be right before champs because if the like in-game event starts at 1:30, gotta figure it takes like 30 minutes or an hour. Because if you didn't do, or if you're listening and you didn't do the in-game event last year, they did the same thing where they did a reveal in Warzone for Cold War, and you did like a couple missions. I think it took like 20 to 30 minutes. I might be like exaggerating a little bit, but it definitely like you went through some stuff and eventually it led you to the stadium in Warzone where they showed the first like reveal trailer for Cold War. So expecting something else along those lines to happen here for this reveal. But it's good. We finally have actual confirmation that the next game is Call of Duty Vanguard, and we know it's going to be set in World War II based on the trailer. So we've heard a lot of rumors, and it feels like this has been one of the longest times we've gone without like a lot of official information yet on the next COD game because we are in August, and the game presumably comes out uh, in 2 to 3 months. So, um, wow, it's an exciting time to be a COD fan with Champs, and now even when Champs is done, we're gonna have this reveal before Champs, and then post Champs we'll be having the hype period where we're getting excited about the next game to drop.
Yeah, I don't know, like I don't really know what to think about World War II like era, because there were certain parts that I liked about World War II. I did not like the motion sickness that it seemed to give me, so hopefully we'll get some trophy systems in here and that won't be as big of a problem. And the score streaks won't be nearly as jarring, but um, I'm sure there are a lot of people that are happy because World War II seemed to be liked by some people. It's like every modern Call of Duty title. There are people that really, really enjoy it. Like even with Modern Warfare, I mean, I didn't really like it, but there are people that say like Modern Warfare is like one of the best games like since like Black Ops 2, which I mean, I think those people are faded, but they they they, they really like it. So it should be interesting to see what kind of like features they're going to be adding, and like hopefully pick 10 and not that stupid whatever like it was called in World War II where you could only like you picked like Mountaineer or whatever.
Oh yeah,
I forget what it's called now.
Divisions.
Yeah, divisions. Hopefully that is not a thing, because that just is not fun at all. But maybe we'll have league play from the very beginning. That would be that'd be nice. Maybe I'll play
Uh,
Vanguard. Maybe not. We'll see.
I know the Armadillos would definitely want their captain back. That's for sure.
'Cause
Um,
I'm not a
but
captain anymore. I'm more like a an assistant coach that is like a strength and conditioning coach. I'm like the holdback
all
coach on
right.
the NFL teams. Like I'm just kind of there for the experience of it all. Uh, what else do we got? We have. Do you just want to
Um,
like kind of say like what is your favorite champs moment before we get out of here? Like if you have one
I
other
mean
other than Aches eliminating Optic with the 3-0 at World War II champs.
that had no, at oh no, not World War II champs. I'm thinking when Cloud9
Yeah,
eliminated
formal.
Optic from
Yeah.
Black Ops 3 champs because that was the first LAN event I ever went to.
Mm.
That's where I got to meet our boy Mike Merchant for the first time. Um, and I know Mike was actually in the crowd, like trying to record Snapchats for the reaction of that one. And I can't remember where exactly where I was. I think I was like in the press room, and then like when I saw like it was coming down to round 11, I like started to make my way out there, and I don't think like I got actually into the stands for the round 11, but I think I like got out there to see like and now like they had like a cool setup in
Yeah.
the stadium where like it was like three stations and they had the big monitors overhead. So like I think I was like walking out towards the stands and like I could see on the monitor what was happening, and like I got around like the corner just in time to like see like Cloud9 burst up. And so I think that has to be my favorite moment just because, nostalgia. It was super cool to be there and was my first event ever attending actually on land. Um, yeah, I don't know what else I would pick. Um, I feel like if I had to pick something else, the next thing for me that just jumps out right away is that grand finals and Black Ops 2 champs. Because that was just a super close series and it was one that was really exciting to watch. It's one I've watched back multiple times, so I know that's not like one particular moment, but just that entire grand finals between Furico and Envy was a really good match, and obviously I enjoyed Black Ops 2, so that was another good one too.
That was also the debut of Parasite's butt crack, so that was a cool moment for Call of Duty history. Um, I mean, I like that moment because that was my first Call of Duty event to like watch, and that kind of got me hooked into it. So that is a cool moment. Uh, I I think the in terms of like I don't know. I think that Cloud9 optic elimination is it's like top five greatest Call of Duty moments of all time. Like despite what optic fans would like to say, but like the sheer shock of the team that most people thought would at least like get to the grand finals, losing in whatever like top eight on like a side stage is really kind of baffling. But that is my favorite setup, like the actual like side stage that they had for Optic versus Cloud9, because one, they were facing each other, so it was like those old UMG events where you would see like Nameless like screaming "I'm eating you alive" and
Yeah, yeah.
Neslo freaking out, and like I'd love that. And like the kind of the almost like the Boston major for the CS:GO major when Cloud9 won, where they're basically in a bowl. Like the fans are surrounding them instead of like how Call of Duty events do it now, where you have this big stage and everybody's in front. I think like being surrounded by fans is by far the coolest visual, and at least in that moment, it created like one of the greatest moments of Call of Duty esports. But
No, I agree with you too. And it was Mud Dog who tweeted today, just to counter your point, because Chrome CDL Intel has been tweeting like multiple highlight moments from champs over the past decade. And there was one from the 2015 champs between Revenge and Denial. Revenge was that team that kind of went on a Cinderella run at AW champs with Nagafin, Remy, Aqua and Facento. Obviously, Mud Dog and Facento were like part of the Oak Boys. And like Mud Dog tweeted like a screen grab there of one of my favorite COD clips of all time. Because Facento is yelling at a wall. So like to counter your point of them like playing with the fans around them, this was when they were trying to play with the soundproof booths next to each other, and the Mud Dog tweets the picture, and it's just Facento literally screaming at a wall because the team is on the other side in another booth.
yeah, it's I I'm glad that they don't do the boost just for the visual of them being outside and
Yeah.
everything. But yeah, if I could have my if I could basically implant something into Adam Apicella's brain, it would be just do the dome style, let like the gladiators basically go at it. But my favorite champs moment, the ones that stick out to me are my first champs was 2018 when I met you and Mike and Vic Roy and everyone. What and James was Kenny's like incredible streak on London Docks, I think, where he's just like basically world
Yeah.
starring everybody on the map. Also, Simp just completely going off at Black Ops 4 champs, where he's basically doing the same thing and he's just world starring everybody and he's sniping people out of headies and everything. So, yeah, something like that, and just kind of the the complexity dynasty basically being validated by a championship in 2014, like completely demolishing everybody throughout that entire tournament, and then getting to. I think that was like the most lopsided grand finals maybe until last year with FaZe and Empire. So a lot of great moments in champs. I think this is kind of where legends are made. Like Karma's been
Oh yeah.
basically the GOAT since he won two champs, and then when he won three, it just became another thing. And if Clayster or Crimsix can win their fourth at this event, it would likely cement them as the greatest Call of Duty player of all time, for the time being at least. Like we said, Bance has the opportunity to really just become like by and far away like the greatest European player of all time, and like that with Team Revenge, where you had Vicento and Aqua and Nagafen. Those guys' careers were completely changed by having a Cinderella run through a tournament. So maybe somebody on the Thieves, or maybe Minnesota will finish out the year strong and completely shock the world, which would be an awesome story for Call of Duty.
Yep, definitely gonna be an exciting one. Can't wait for Thursday to come around. Just gonna be a weekend full of great COD.
Yep. That does it for the show. We don't have anything else. We wish all 8 teams good luck at champs. We hope everybody stays safe. The teams and the coaches and the staff and all of the fans. Please wear your mask. Please get vaccinated, or I don't know, like get a negative test before. Just follow the protocols, because I'd like everybody to be safe and for this event to go pretty smoothly to finish out the season. If you really like what we're doing, make sure to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. We're on YouTube, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Google Podcasts, Spotify as well. Make sure to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast. Follow us on Twitter. He's at jbink with 2Ks. I'm at Prez Byers, and the podcast Twitter is at Ego Chall Podcast. We usually update if there's. We do this almost all the time on Tuesdays at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then the audio only version comes out the next day. But follow us on Twitter. We'll give you updates on if we're doing the show, if we're not doing the show, if there's any changes to the schedule or what we're doing for the next show, which our next show will be next Tuesday, August 24th. We will be doing a champs recap. We'll be kind of breaking down if we were super wrong or correct in our picks. Maybe Optic does get to the grand finals and our memes were validated. But yeah, tune in. We're doing the live show at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next Tuesday, August 24th, and then the audio version and the YouTube version will be out the following morning. That's all from me. Take it away, Bink.
Yep. Thank you guys as always for tuning in. To our loyal listeners and viewer, really appreciate you guys throughout this entire experience. Obviously, the end of the season doesn't mean the end of the podcast. We're still planning on carrying this out. It's pretty cool though. I was talking to Preston earlier. This is our 25th episode, so gonna see how many more we can get from here. But obviously, just appreciate the support from you guys throughout this entire 2021 CDL season, and hopefully we'll go out with a bang here with some great action at COD Champ. So thanks for tuning in, and as always, remember to send the chow.